Hello everyone, Para here from the Paradox Brothers channel. Today I am going to be making a video for you about understanding Strike Ninja a little bit better in GOAT format. As a disclaimer for this video that will also apply to future videos, this will not be a be-all, end-all guide to Strike Ninja or to any card that we discuss, but just a general broad strokes to better understand the deck, the card, and things of that sort. But if you do have advice, it's always welcome in the comments below. So what is Strike Ninja? It's a warrior type monster at 4 stars and a dark attribute. All three of these qualities are very good and desirable qualities in GOAT format. The warrior archetype is very searchable. The dark monster is very synergetic with chaos, and 4-star is great because you can normal summon. It also has a 1700 attack stat, 1200 defense, which isn't bad. The effect is you can banish 2 dark monsters from your graveyard to banish this card until the end phase, and then it comes back. So how can you use this effect? Now, it allows you to be pretty aggressive because it does have some built-in protection, which is not common in GOAT format. Simultaneously start building up a banish pile that you can later bring back with cards like Return from a Different Dimension or Dimension Fusion. And also, you can go up on card economy against your opponent because you could force them to activate trap cards that won't be able to resolve because the target Strike Ninja will be out of there and nowhere near to be found by the trap cards. There's also some niche interactions with DD Scout Plane. If you looked on our channel before at previous Strike Ninja builds, you'll see that I use that quite often. But you can use that to essentially bring back DD Scout Plane continuously and tribute them off to get them back into the grave to use Strike Ninja's effect again. So I'd say all three of these cards are fairly common in Strike Ninja decks, but particularly the Dimension Fusion, the Return from a Different Dimension. So one of the main things we have to do is get darks in the grave, but we don't want to just put them in there with no reason. We want to get some sort of advantage for putting them in there. We want every step of the way to using Strike Ninja to be advantageous for us later down the line. So there are many ways you can get darks into the grave. You can use cards like Card Destruction. You can use cards like Mystic Tomato to constantly be having a field presence and getting cards in the grave. Even Apprentice Magician to a lesser extent, and things of that nature. However, I think a pretty good way, one I've recently been experimenting with, is just playing very aggressive early on with high attack stat dark monsters, and just prompt a response out of your opponent. So, like, say for example, like Giant Orc, Skilled Dark Magician, Kaiku to a lesser extent, but just cards like this that are high attack stat monsters that your opponent, particularly like Giant Orc, for example, which, spoiler alert, I use in a deck list that I'll show you at the end of this video. But so some weaknesses. It's only 1700 attack, which is actually still pretty good. However, it can be vulnerable to a lot of the common cards. These are just a few of the common monsters that could be problematic for Strike Ninja as far as attacking over them. And then obviously Kaiku is a special consideration you have to take in mind because it prevents you from using Strike Ninja's ability completely. This is also true for Negra Valley, but that's just less common. And then obviously Gravekeeper Spy is one of the most common monster cards in GOAT format right now, which is interesting because if you were to look at a few years ago on GOATformat.com's website, like 2019 or so, you'll see they have like many articles that talk about people not using this card. So it's kind of interesting how influential that can be. Now everyone uses it. But obviously this can wall Strike Ninja out and prevent your whole game plan of making your opponent exhaust resources. Some positives are like provided that you don't get walled out by Spirit Reaper, Spy, something like that. You can push for a lot of damage early on, get momentum in the game, and then just edge them out later on with cards like Return or Dimension Fusion or something like that. And if you play it really well, you can actually go up in card economy. and just be very explosive and catch your opponent off guard. These are some of the cards, not all the cards, but some of the cards you can escape that are pretty popular. Special note to say is Torrential Tribute. You could trigger your own Torrential Tribute, get Strike Ninja up out of there with its effect, and just board wipe everything like a pseudo Dark Hole of sorts. Um, so, how can we take the Strike Ninja decks we've had previously on the channel and in general and make it a deck for the current meta? So, we really have to consider a couple things. One, you have to deal with the high attack monsters and the large walls. You need more speed to keep up the chaos decks that are the modern day chaos decks, and also more speed to prevent from being overwhelmed by warrior decks early on. Then you still need to maintain the identity of the deck, right, to make a straight ninja deck. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind when building this. So here is what I have come up with thus far. It may slightly change in the future, but this is a build that I actually like quite a bit. Um, so we have Blackluster Soldier in here for the Chaos Monster, DD Warrior Lady, searchable off Sangan, an Honorary Light, most often being banished, but in this deck in particular, that can actually be pretty good too. Dark Magician of Chaos, because it's just so explosive to bring back off of Return or Dimension Fusion, Premature Burial, Called Haunted. 3 Decorchis, because when one gets banished, they all get banished. So you thin out your deck, and you also have lots of monsters in your banish pile to bring back. Exiled Force, which is searchable through Sangan, Rhoda. The 3 Giant Orc I mentioned previously, which just allow you to be very aggressive, take care of spies, take care of Zombiras. Honestly, a pretty slept on card. People understand the utility of Goblin Attack Force, and I think eventually they're going to understand the utility of this card. Sangan searches a lot of the cards in this deck, such as the Warley, Decorchi, Exiled, Sinister Serpent, obviously. The 3 Strike Ninja. I like 3 Strike Ninja and 1 Reinforcements to the Army. I really want to make sure I have this card. Yes, you will draw this card when you don't need it, but you can always use it in the graveyard. 3 Thunder Dragons. Along with the idea of wanting to, like I said in the previous slide, be able to, you know, out attack, high attack monsters and get over walls with Giant Orc. We also want to be able to keep up with the speed of those decks. Thunder Dragon is a really good card to do that. Also allows us to play Blackluster Soldier. So 3 Thunder Dragons, and sometimes it just facilitates really broken hands, like Graceful Charity, getting Upstart Goblins, Pot of Greed. You just draw so many cards potentially with this card. And a lot of people play card destruction as well, so when they're playing that, it can benefit you as well. Zombira, similar reason as Giant Orc. Also, Searchable Dark, very strong, almost like a pseudo exiled force in some situations. So, played the 1 Dimension Fusion because I feel like more than that in this particular build is not as good because a lot of people will, we're not OTKing really, and a lot of people will have banish piles themselves. Graceful Charity, obvious card, Heavy Storm, Mystical Space Tycoon, standard cards, cross out standard cards. Pot of Greed, standard, premature, same thing. 1 reinforcement to the army instead of 2 because the other 2 warrior targets, or there's 3 warrior targets, I guess, but 2 of the 4 warrior targets we have in this deck are searchable through Sangan. So 1 Snatch Shield, 2 Upstart Goblins, keeping up with the Chaos Tarot type decks. Call Haunted for mostly for Dark Magician of Chaos, and this card right here, next in line. Deck Devastation Virus. If you're not familiar with this card, you tribute 1 dark monster that's 2000 attack or more. Look at your opponent's hand and the monsters they have on the field, and all the cards they draw for the next 3 turns until the end of essentially the 3rd turn after this activation of this card. And you destroy all monsters that are 1500 attack or less. So this includes like Goat Tokens, Thousand Eyes Restrict, Magician of Phase, Decorchi, Gatekeeper Spy. It's an amazing way to get rid of a lot of really annoying cards. And a lot of people will just quit after this because you also get to see their hand. And the next 3 cards, like essentially 3 standard draws that they'll have, depending upon when you activate it, of course, right? But either way, you get to see if they activated Upstart or Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, Card Destruction, any of those cards, while they're under this, they'll be able to see those as well. And they'll also have to discard all the monsters that fit that criteria. So it could be very powerful. You have 4 monsters in here, 1 which is searchable, of which you can use this. I personally like to attack with Giant Orc. A lot of times people won't do anything about it. They'll just take the damage because it's going to be a defense mode, and even a Sinister Serpent can run over it. Then have deck devastation virus set face down. Let them come and try to run over Giant Orc, and then just tribute them off and destroy everything that they have that fits that criteria. 2 Jar of Greeds, just for the speed. 2 Phoenix Wing Wind Blasts, works really well with the Thunder Dragons and Sinister Serpent. Return from a Different Dimension is really powerful in this deck in particular. You have to keep in mind that you can attack with Straight Ninja, still in battle phase, activate his ability after the attack, banish 2 monsters from the grave, and then you can bring them all back or return from a different dimension and attack again with Straight Ninja and plus the other monsters you've banished. Ring of Destruction, really good card. Torrential Tribute, obviously a good card as well. The side deck, I wouldn't pay too much attention to really. I will kind of go over some things though. The Skilled Dark Magicians and the Breaker, essentially I'll bring those in, maybe even the Zambara, take out the Decor Trees game 2 if someone sees it, especially with how rampant Mind Control is. And then I'll, yeah, that way they bring in Mind Control and it's really not useful at all in this deck. So the 2 Book of Moon are in there for Thousand and Strict type decks. The Delinquent Duo is in there for combo decks and decks that don't run Thunder Dragons. Sometimes Warrior, it really just depends. A lot of Warriors don't hold cards in their hand, but it can be really busted against Warrior if you could draw it early. Mirror Force, sacrifice your armor for the Warrior matchup, Zambara for the Warrior matchup. 3 Cursed Sealed, Forbidden Spell for Reasoning Gate decks. I think this card can be a phenomenal answer potentially against those decks because it just prevents them from. They can't really recycle their spells that you use this card on. I mean, they can, but they can't use it. It's just really good. 2 Soul Release. Instead of the Mind Control, at this moment I have the Soul Release because I can use it on my own cards if I wanted to. And also, obviously, I can use it on my opponent's cards once they go full draw combo and discard Sinister Serpent and 3 Thunder Dragons, and I get to Soul Release all of them. And that's obviously very good for us. So that's it of the slides that I have. So, but just to recap, I think Strike Ninja is definitely viable. One of my favorite decks to play, obviously. You're just going to have to adapt to the current meta, but you can definitely make it work. I like the Giant Orcs in here personally quite a bit. I like the deck Devastation Virus. It feels like it doesn't really break very often because you have 4 targets you can use that are normal summonable. Obviously, you have the Dark Magician of Chaos as well. And I love the speed the deck has with the Jar of Greeds and Upstarts. And the side deck probably isn't perfect, but right at this moment, I actually really do like this build. One thing I will note is, if you don't like the 3 Decor Trees, you could put in 3 Spies if you really wanted to. I just like the speed, and I'm not really worried about walling people out as much. And if I'm facing against Warriors, I'll just bring in my Battle Traps most of the time. Yeah, that's it for this video, really. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. You learned something new. Maybe you try this out. You let us know. You have different advice or things you think I missed or didn't have time to really address. Let us know in the comments below. It's all about trying to make this format better for everyone that plays it. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks for watching.